welcome back to Literally Literary. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to check out our previous episodes. Today, we are continuing our discussion on Cowboy Park by Eduardo Martinez-Leyva.
All right, we back.
Yeah. How are you guys doing?
Hot.
Super
It's
duper.
not really a feeling, but
Well, kind of, in this 100-degree weather.
but Eduardo does talk a lot about the heat, so we can talk about that.
Yeah,
Right.
let's get into it.
Yeah. Well, how are you?
I'm good too. Yeah. Well, relatively, but
Relatively, yeah.
Aren't we all?
yeah.
You know, there was this poetry podcast that I listened to for a little while, and they would always start their episodes with that, but they would ask, "How's your heart?"
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't know if we
No,
want to get into that.
Do we? Are we? Maybe we don't want to talk about that.
But Eduardo does such a great job of talking about all these things, grief and trauma and pain and pleasure and,
Yeah.
finding a space between all that.
Yeah. I feel like that's such a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
It brings up on Saldua, right? And the...
Yeah. Epigraph.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even in the title poem, right? The Cowboy Park. Yeah. Yeah. See, there's somewhere on Saldua there. This is my home. This thin edge of barbed wire. There it is. Okay. Anyway.
Open mic.
Yeah, strange. But we kind of decided to cut the first episode a little shorter and stopping at part 1, which means we have to cover part 2 and part 3 today.
Yes.
At the very least,
Yeah. Definitely a tall task, but I think we can do it.
Yeah, I think I agree. Hold on. Okay. I guess for our listeners, since we have the option to interact, who has picked up a copy, and listening to it after listening to this, or I guess even before, since, it's an El Paso-based author, maybe you saw him speak at Valle Verde as well as Northwest Campus, or, just know them personally and picked it up. What do you guys think of it? Leave a comment,
Yeah. Let us know.
What kind of questions would you want to ask them in case we hint interview the author?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we got at least one question down already, so
Okay, yeah.
yeah. So part 2, scenes from the Bone Orchard.
I feel like this, I guess before we get into scenes from Bone Orchard, I feel like section 2 is the most like sensually oriented, right? Where it contains the most of those pieces,
Yeah.
But I don't know. This one, I had some strong lines, but like towards the end, I don't know about you.
Right. Me too.
Yeah. Is it the in Spanish?
Right.
Corner of an apple? Yeah, that's such a good,
Yeah.
that's such a great line.
But it also, this section did also remind me of not just Aldo's work, but Ben Sainz's work.
Okay.
His poetry and also like his prose even in terms of how he describes people and men especially. Yeah, if you guys remember, with Kentucky Club, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. But once again here we get the setting right of Cowboy Park, the cowboy figure, and then playing around with the family name, right, of Angelos.
Yeah. Something we mentioned before pushing record today, right? Is like how there are many Angelos for him. Almost like a composite of people.
Right.
That we can describe here, that from this area, the broken, the beautiful, the light, the dark,
Right.
the inspiring as well as the traumatizing,
Right.
and really surviving, because that's the line here in this piece, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think survival is a really big theme throughout this entire collection. I like a coping mechanisms that are developed due to trauma. Just like finding a way to survive through all of it.
Yeah. And I like this imagery of like cutting things down to the bone. Sorry, geez, I messed it up. To the bone, to the core, right? And uses that metaphor of like a core, apple being put down to its core, its essence, and like the imagery of being bruised or surviving.
Yeah.
So like you're still there, but you have the bruises, and it's pretty heavy imagery, and I see why this is a good start to this entire section.
Yeah.
And then that last stanza is just, I don't know if you want to talk about that one, because it's
the
so
last
good.
The last 3 lines of this poem, I don't know. It's kind of giving Brat Summer. It's kind of giving Apple by Charlie XCX.
Ah, okay. This is where your expertise is. Is not ours. Unless you know.
The lyrics.
I have no idea.
You guys aren't having a Brat Summer? No, I'm just kidding.
It can be.
No, one of the lines in the song is, I think the apple is rotten right to the core. Like that kind of ties into this a little bit, I think, and like trauma that's passed down from generations, like generational trauma. I don't know. I guess like in terms of surviving, I really liked the last 3 lines. They really stood out to me. All these years, I've kept my hands away from everyone's heart, including my own. I always loved the things that bruise so easily. And I think that like a lot of people experience that, like, rather than allowing people in an attempt to like avoid getting hurt, they like keep things at a distance. And so, yeah, I don't know. I really related to those last 3 lines a lot.
Yeah, but I also did like that, and the play with language. You know, it reminds me of Gabriel's work, right? Border Simulator. And yeah, I mean, I really like it, just like you, Richie, how as poets, like when we, you know, use language that way to kind of think about how things translate differently.
Right. And he has that bit there about, right, in Spanish, to dishearten.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds better in Spanish, you know, descoranozar.
See, that's why I had you read it, because I was gonna do the same thing. Because I was trying to earlier. I was practicing like discord. Okay, geez, to dishearten. Yeah, no, but it does sound. And in the first episode, we kind of pointed out how the speaker in these pieces finds refuge in language, and translation, and I think this is a really great moment of that.
Yeah.
You see a lot of this too from Eduardo, is these kind of killer last lines to leave off with, and that's just such a hallmark of poetry that I love so much. It's the metaphorical mic drop. If you're reading out there, it's just that line that hits and kind of sticks with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these pieces, you have to like stop after you read the last line and just like process it.
And even though this isn't an enjambment, we talked about it last time, this has the feel of one, you know, even though it isn't.
Yeah.
Because the way you kind of read it too right now, the little piece there felt like that.
And just like you were talking about the self-love or lack thereof, I was trying to remember which was it, Jose Olivares' book about like the different kinds of love, right? Or was it Cassie's?
Well, Promises of Gold in particular focuses on the different types of love, for sure.
Yeah, just kind of thinking about the connections, and you know how we've seen it in different other poems and stuff.
Yeah. Even like going into Small Vices, it kind of the opening lines remind me of oh my gosh, I can't remember the character's name from
Movie?
I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter. I'm blanking on her name. Oh my gosh.
I want to say Luz, but that's Callie's. Like, oh man.
No,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I keep wanting to say Xiomara, but it's not.
Right. How so?
There's a scene in I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter where she goes and she lays out in the snow also. When she's feeling, I guess, suicidal and she's having a lot of dark thoughts. And there's a moment in the book where she goes and she lays out in the snow until she's too cold. So that's what these opening lines reminded me of as well.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm looking it up. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Julia.
Okay.
Why didn't I think of that?
I was gonna say Erica, but that's the author.
No, yeah.
That's not my first okay. Yeah, Small Vices. I particularly like that again. The ending line. I don't know if you have anything before that.
Well, you mentioned Luz from A Woman of Light. The line here jumped out at me. We looked for signs in cards and tea, right? And
Right.
forget what it's called when you read the tea leaves, but yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. I mean, so this one is rife with all sorts of enjambment, and again, going back to that last line, this is one of my favorite of the entire piece. It's not too metaphorically complex, right? My voice was the only thing keeping us warm, but there's a lot of references to the cold and
Loneliness.
yeah, and just the kind of devices we get into to survive that. Here, it's the voice. It's like survival through music, through song. Keeping them warm, especially as a source in the cold, in desolation, in silence, and it's kind of like the refuge of the poet, finding your voice. And I think as this selection continues, we see more of these references of the speaker finding a career, finding warmth in their voice, in song even. There's moments throughout. So I think that's why this one kind of holds a lot of the pieces together for me.
No, yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it,
Yeah. And yeah, there's that contrast of how the speaker's partner is able to fill in that void. The lights go out, but it's the hands and the person, right, that provides that space for the void.
Yeah.
The eponymous poem on page 40.
There's 2 Cowboy Parks.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
right?
there's
Okay.
2.
We already passed the first one? Or?
No, this
other
is the
one's to
first one.
end.
Okay. Yeah. 85 is the other one.
What I remember talking. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
I'm like, is that your other podcast?
Oh,
Yeah, the one that plays in my head all the time. I only vaguely listen to. Okay, yeah, all right, Cowboy Park.
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot in this one of submission. And throughout, right, there's a lot of pieces about that, like the glory hole one, and but again, it kind of puts it in the framework of like the cowboy, and it's like the cowboy is he wants the cowboy to be vulnerable as well, right? Like, show me your heart, because you have this image of like Clint Eastwood, like he never.
Yeah, the subversion of the masculinity that we attach to that outlaw cowboy figure, and but the subversive cowboy.
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, if we did like a word cloud of the collection, thirst would be one of the biggest words that pops out, right? And I like this, the thirst associated with maybe even just the desert.
Yeah.
Even like maybe struggling in this area and kind of like against a lot of the religious views, almost feeling like alone in that, like thirsting for it, or like that you have to be secretive, like just exploring queer masculinity, right?
Yeah.
Which, I think of the heat, it's sweat, which also brings in that sexuality, that tenderness.
Yeah.
I'm almost saying this because it's pretty hot in here. I'm starting to feel the
Like,
heat.
"And
I'm
I'm
starting to
hot."
feel the heat too,
Yeah. Great opening line in Vaquero, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about some great closing lines, but this is a great one. You want to put your darkness in me, all of it.
Yeah.
I also like the enjambment in this piece. And it's not necessarily done with line breaks, but also punctuation, like in the middle of the line. I really liked the fifth and the sixth stanza in this piece. I could ruin you. Spend an afternoon with my head on your chest, the wild, wild west of you sleeping, off an all-night bender. I could get used to this. I don't know. I feel like even with the punctuation, it changes a lot of like what's being said. And like you could read it all together, but with the punctuation, it just feels so much heavier, so much more intense.
Yeah. There's also a lot of more of the wordplay, the meaning of vaquero and, in this page 42 about how jeans are called vaqueros in Spanish or in Spain. And so the speaker, right, plays around with that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to slip into my vaqueros, take my vaqueros to the bar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of wordplay too around kind of like void, holes, openness being filled in, and the queerness of it.
Right.
So you see it a lot, I think, in this particular section of the book. Like I was saying, even that like line you pointed out too, right? Of put your darkness in me, or later on, I think the entire night could fit in me.
Right.
Yeah.
I do think that is these two poems, Cowboy Park and Vaquero, the ones back to back here. It's interesting the kind of questioning of truth and lies, and because the first in Cowboy Park you have I wish you'd say this and mean it. And kind of the other one ends in that too. We both know that's a lie.
Right.
It's probably why they're placed together in this collection.
Yeah.
Similar.
And then this one also, goes into the passing down of knowledge, of traditions, and in the bottom of 42, no man passed down this knowledge to me of the burning animals instead of burying them. I have no one to pass down this knowledge to. If every cowboy has a sad song, I'm afraid you are mine to perform. I know you by heart and blood stains.
That third language.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of another reference, what I was talking about, the song, the voice, when we're feeling it, we want to belt it out, sing it out. And a lot of metaphors here you can kind of like dive into, and I do think it's interesting because there's a reference later on, like, I'm tired of metaphors. That I think hits particularly hard because there's these very heavy ones during this section.
Yeah.
Seems like the next several pieces kind of add an element of like religion or like faith or like, but like a twist on it, I guess.
Right. Just more of the wordplay, right? Like in Show Pony, I mistake the word discipline for disciple.
Yeah.
And then again, going back to this idea of submission, I think there is not just in queerness, right, but like in hetero relationships about the submitting to someone, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then going back to that idea of submission and God punished for being disobedient. What you were saying, Richie, about the conception of God, it's interesting here how submitting to men, or just trusting men, right? The speaker describes that to God, to Jesus as well, right? They'll betray you someday, she said, if you don't listen. They'll take you by the hands, if not by your lips. And I kind of like that, the idea that like this is something that is both uniquely human, but also that can happen to anyone, and because so many men that he mentions, leave him scarred and like, traumatized
Yeah.
and so I guess like you were saying, like it might be a way of coping. It might be a way of making this godlike figure more relatable.
One of the things I want to ask Eduardo is kind of about the writing and if he reads his work out loud during the editing process to like focus on the musicality of it, because there's definitely some moments that just sound so good,
Yeah.
Hour of honeyed light, or you have shrouded in your suit of stars, or heavy studded sky sparkling, like these very musical elements to the poetry that sound so good read out loud.
Yeah. I think he did say that he does read them out loud.
Yeah.
I remember when I spoke with him at Northwest, I asked him a lot about enjambment and white space and like how he knows when to break a line. And I think he said he reads them out loud and he kind of like plays with it. And like there's so much intention behind like why he breaks up the lines, obviously. Yeah, it's all purposeful. And he definitely like plays around with it and the white space and the enjambment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, I mean, going back to the playing around, like with language as well, right? In 46 on the God wing squeeze but won't strangle you. Another dicho here, dos aprieta pero no ahorca. And so kind of, playing around with that, saying of like, and the title as well, right? But I don't know, there's kind of like a twist on it, because it's I guess framed within a queer identity, and again it kind of there's an element of like masochism there, and the oh Lord I say, right, as I surrender,
I think I want to talk about Estrita on page 50.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else had something before.
No.
I think I really liked the way that this one kind of talks about life in terms of, I guess, like as a book. So towards the middle of the poem, how many chapters does this book have? He wanted to skip to the less graphic parts, but it's like this is your life. It's like wanting to skip over like all of the ugly parts of your own life, but like it's still a chapter of like something that you experienced in your story. So I really liked that.
Yeah. there's also the cosmic element, right? He knocked me from here until I could see where galaxies. I mean, it starts with stars in the title as well.
Tiny flickering stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it goes into like I don't know if it's thirst, but like that hunger of like wanting something, and like longing for somebody to like be there. Which I guess could go into like the idea of thirst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A yearning that
Yeah.
hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it ends, with those last 3 lines. I unfolded myself, an outstretched hand, empty. I learned to keep going, despite of all of this, or because of it.
Yeah. What's the next one that you guys wanted to cover?
I mean,
Yeah.
there's like lines and stuff and
Yeah.
all throughout each one, but
Yeah.
I feel like the next ones that I like in totality or not till the section 3 that I could.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of these cover a lot of the same things, or like in terms of themes.
Yeah.
But I do like how there's like the juxtaposition between like religion and sex. So like in adultery, there's a line, I wore all white, knelt until my knees bled. But like the poem isn't necessarily about religion, but it's like the idea like of this innocence being, I guess, like taken, but like at the same time, I don't know. It's like both of them are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it could be like in prayer or like in a sexual sense.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like I was thinking to your point, Ode to a Leather Harness. You have this play of words, my kink of kinks, my Old and New Testament. Like instead of king of kings, it's
Yeah.
kink of kinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot too, right? Of like forgiveness and sin and, the conception of sin within the Catholicism or even perhaps Christianity, right? Is that like being gay is a sin. And so I think there's a lot of that here.
Yeah. It feels like, I think like a lot of the books we've covered, some of the characters struggle with their relationship with religion. And so this one kind of ties into that as well. Like the belief is there, but it doesn't necessarily align with who the person is.
Or perhaps what Christianity is.
Yeah.
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 Because even like the last line in God gave you hands, so use them. Listen, I never meant for the men to sing, to sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then kind of the end of this whole section ends with like this scene of a porn star, right? And this image of like, if I hope this is heaven, right? If there's an afterlife, please let this be it.
Yeah. Did we speed through that too much? I'm like, we're already on point 3.
Well, we're already 40 minutes into.
Okay.
A bit too fair. We probably like
You're
10, 12
lying.
minutes of silence, but yeah.
40 minutes? Okay. No, we're doing
But I think
good
I think that works though,
Yeah,
because
no,
it's
we're
a
good.
summation of like similar themes in that
Yeah.
second section that I think.
Yeah.
And of course, we want people to read it too and kind
Yeah.
of discover for themselves.
Yes.
I think.
Yes. So now here we are in part 3.
And Richie, pre-show, you were saying this is your favorite part from the 3. Right?
I feel like it has the poems to me that felt were the strongest cohesively, or maybe it's just more fresh in my mind too. But,
Yeah.
I just had a lot of strong lines and interesting moments that stood out to me of these, and
Yeah.
I just love a lot of language in it. Like even when I spoke the language of the donkeys, I really enjoyed reading the piece overall.
Yeah.
And
I mean, some of these are like love poems, Not that we haven't seen them before, but Yeah. Because of the voice.
Yeah. I just have these fragments in my mind of things that I like and want to say, but the reason why I'm taking a while is I'm just trying to like how to tie it up into an overall point. You know, that's kind of where I'm getting stuck at right now,
Yeah.
to be honest. But you know, the language of the donkey is just some of the things that stick out to me is just this language of the desert, right? And otherness, brownness,
Yeah.
right? Kind of being otherized by, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of speak of like white men and, you know, but I just love the line, give the desert what belongs to the desert. A vessel of dust is all you will be, dimwit. And just kind of these lines throughout of like, you're only seen as a body, a criminal body, a lust factory, a worker, you're a body, you're
Yeah.
And again, the contrast between day and night and light and darkness. You know, you were born at night, and that is why you're so dark.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, going to like masculinity, like you can't carry flowers unless you're heading to a funeral. Like,
And brown boys get sad too.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I get the illusion in that one that you read, the give the desert what belongs to the desert, you know, with Caesar. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And again, you get the image of like thirst, right, with the desert and
or maybe that element of being otherized, right? Can you name this bird? Can you quote Shakespeare to the language of a donkey? You're a zoo with all animals in it. Like there's something like lesser than or like
Yeah.
not understood, you know?
yeah.
And I guess the last thing is donkeys, burro, you know, the just like that connotation too.
Oh yeah, it's a great opening poem for the third section.
Yeah, especially with the poem that's like right after. Because this one's directly related to the Walmart shooting that happened here in El Paso. Which I guess the motive behind it was a hatred towards brown people. So like having the language of the donkeys right before this, pairing them together makes a lot of sense in my head.
Yeah. And then he read this one, right? In the yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we already covered the one where his mom, oh right, that he had, you know, she's seen a therapist in part one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But this is the speaker's experience, having not been here, but having known someone who was present during it.
And it's just like one big prose poem.
Which also I think makes so much sense because the title in itself says you have a panic attack in the supermarket.
Right.
And having it be prose, it just like feels a little bit more, not rushed, but like there's a sense of urgency there. Like it doesn't break. So like there's not as much pauses in it when you're reading it.
Right. And it reflects the trauma of how like it extended, you know, beyond time and space, right? Because I don't know if this is New York or like wherever the Scott Key Bridge is, but
Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore?
Yeah. That area.
And yeah, the speaker wasn't even at Walmart, but again, it kind of reflects that vicarious trauma that we all went through from that.
Yeah.
And the fear of like, you know, going to a supermarket. And it's an irrational fear, you know, because like, I mean, you know, he wasn't even here, right? But still, yeah, I mean, definitely it hits hard.
This next one's probably the shortest in the entire collection, right? But it is another series of the portrait of, right? That kind of motif that keeps coming back, scene from, portrait of, you know, that kind of thing. And it's just one image, right? The way his fingers pushed back my hair. this is what I choose to remember. A lot of the books about memory. I don't know if we've talked a lot about memory.
Yeah.
Choosing what to remember and what not to remember, which I think ties in a lot to the spaces, the white space, the pauses, the silences, the stuff that isn't said. So here, I think just a very deliberate call to that. It's a very tender moment in choosing to remember that versus everything else.
Yeah, I mean, especially when there's a loved one we lost, either figuratively or literally, you know, you do tend to just want to remember the good things.
Yeah.
And again, it kind of goes back to what you're saying about coping, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just super simple, but packs a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's what that. I'm trying to figure out what the noise is. It's
It's you.
it's because last time I was doing this, I was hitting the book with.
Oh,
And I was like, I'm not doing it this time. They're very sensitive mics.
Yeah.
Oh well, we can cut this part out.
I guess we're all sensitive.
It's true. We're all sensitive people. Cue the song. All right. Mordida. I don't know if you guys had anything on that one.
Just again, the voice, the second person, right? That I know you said, Vanessa, you asked him about.
I wasn't there, so what happened? Can you?
I asked him how he determined the point of view of like whether a piece was in like first person or second person. And I want to say that when he's using second person, it's kind of to create like distance between the experience and the speaker or himself.
Okay, I see that. Yeah.
And then also about the, you know, the trauma behind it. You know, at the bottom of the page about what else besides your body do you carry that is illegal? Will your body also carry bullets one day? And it's that like interrogation also of how people can be dehumanized. And I think, you know, especially right now, right? I feel like we are having this conversation again right after with David Olmo's book, you know, with ICE raiding and you know, the way that they are not just interrogating immigrants, but also like, you know, U.S. citizens and, you know, the racial profiling behind it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of that piece, it's almost like there's a zooming out, right? Like how much more of this can you take of people disappearing or dying or being killed? How many elegies do you have left inside you?
Yeah.
My next one is 76. I don't know, you guys?
A protagonist?
No.
Or
The end of
Angelo? Okay.
What you guys had?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I mean, this kind of echoes similar one earlier on in the collection too, but I mean, it was interesting. I do think that's interesting. This call to even the women who are praying, and there's almost hold on, let me see. They joined us, right? The woman joined us, but I thought it was interesting, like the description of it almost mean, which I think was an interesting inclusion of the description of the women praying along, but. The reason why this stood out to me is that last image of he's probably dead somewhere, but that image of lifeless, already split wide open like a dead dog's jaw. I think that was just very visceral image.
Yeah.
Kind of very striking.
And there's that address, right, to Angelo or Angelo. I am angry. I have no more grievances in me. The world wants us to be a damaged cathedral. Wants us to be saved so badly. So again, just framing it within that religious perspective and salvation.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reminds me of that line. I think I already referenced it. That's in a later piece, broom ballad, something ballad, broom. I'm tired of metaphors, kind of the anger that.
Yeah.
unsatisfied, right? Of being done with pleasantries. You guys have anything in a protagonist once said? No.
No.
One of my favorite lines is in that I step down from your sonnet, open the iron gate, and lean into your wonder. That's very beautifully written and kind of leading up to the conclusion of some people leave us, right? Some of us don't have tomorrow.
Yeah.
The idea of bridges too, right? What are bridges for if not to cross or burn them?
Yeah, that was a line I had underlined as well. You also have this reference to letters that left are unsealed, and I think that leads well into the next piece, right?
Yeah.
Letters from my younger brother, morning. You guys had anything there?
Yeah, I mean, this one, so many lines. I mean, right from the opening, right? Day 12, brother, you've been reduced to crumbs, left on the side of the road for the sparrows to fight over. And so I feel there's a lot of these odes or elegies to the brother, the lost brother.
Going back to just memory and struggling with the grief, that's brought up a lot. The end of that stanza you just read, right, is also a line I love a lot. They say you are the missing shape we've built ourselves around. We should be happy with the memories we've hoarded. I'm not.
Yeah.
And then I think another great line that kind of encapsulates the whole collection is on 80, under that poem. Since then, everything insists on rhyming with grief. I think that's an interesting concept, right? Grief as something that rhymes. It's repetitive. You experience it again and again. From one language to the next, grieving stays the same. No envelope can contain it. Again, referring to the unopened letters.
Right. It's kind of interesting also how at the end the day is left, blanked out. And I'm trying to remember where was it Cassie's book, right? We saw a lot of that also, the blacking out.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And then, again, going back to the ending of this piece, there's kind of solace in song.
Yeah. And the reference, right, to
T.S. Eliot?
T.S. Eliot, yeah.
It's not with a noise, but a whimper.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper. In this case, it's with noise or sobbing, but with a song.
Yeah.
Recuperado. I have a line there that I think is a great image of a hammer learning its own language.
Yeah.
It's kind of going to that saying of like, what does the world look like, right? Or the one about nails and a hammer. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Everything looks like a nail when you're a hammer or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. My next one's not until 88. I don't know. Have you guys had anything before?
Cowboy Park for me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess for me too. I mean, like, there's just elements in the other pieces too that, like, I'm tired of connecting it to previous pieces, but you got the second Cowboy Park, and I definitely have more on that. But would you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's got an interesting layout. You got Ansel Dua's epigraph, right? The second one that you were talking about. This is my home, this signage of barbed wire. It's got a great opening, right? I want to rename all the constellations after you, but I know the sky was not meant for us. Made like the other things we made out of construction paper from our childhood imagination. And just how the speaker, goes on about the meaning of the partner to them, and the meaning of like language as well. At the bottom there, again the reference to the being on his knees. We were two broken boys. Now there's only one of us. I have made words my occupation. And then I really like also this strong line of I took inventory of my wounds, became an injured womb, no one dares to visit. So there's a lot there of loss, of trauma.
Yeah. Like there's a temporal element too as you read the piece that you move forward in time, and I do like in the second section that we have here this very bleak look of like imagining what's going to happen while remembering the innocence of youth and childhood a little bit. I think we talked about this in the first episode. It comes up a little bit, but it's this idea of a fatherless neighborhood, cracked asphalt hurting our feet, a pickup truck rusting away in the driveway. Accurate depictions of our future traumas. Like I just turning these neighborhoods, and I think we've seen these images, like rusted out truck and this hot asphalt and fatherless neighborhood. That made me think of the gang Fatherless, right? Like that was like a local gang kind of growing up in that hood. But I mean, I don't think it's referenced here, but
Yeah.
it's just the concept of it, I guess. But that one stuck out to me as a line there, and of course, making words as an occupation.
Yeah. And again, a lot of that cosmic imagery, right, throughout the collection that I really like, and kind of brings it more into like a more vast perspective beyond just like the people.
And I do like the reversal at the end of that. Well, the beginning mentions like the heavens wasn't meant for us, but second, the speaker is asking, what do we look like from the heavens? And I like that reversal.
Yeah, there's a lot of great poems here that end with that, good question.
That's the technique. All right, we're going to ask if we get to interview Eduardo, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the art of ending in a good question, huh? You said yours was 88?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like this one, Purgatory. It kind of made me think of like feeling like a numbness, like wanting to feel something. And I guess like just giving away parts of yourself in order to satisfy other people. So like the idea of like people pleasing, but also like trying to fill a void in yourself through all of this. Yeah, I really liked this one.
What do you think about the dedication on that?
It's fitting for sure.
For my traumas, right? Which is
Yeah.
And then, going from heaven to now, like purgatory, right? It's almost like, Dante's journey, right? From hell to purgatory and then he ends up in heaven.
Yeah.
cool. Okay. That was Purgatory.
Yeah,
Okay,
Purgatory.
Gotcha.
And then I bet you like that line about I'll stay for the after party and long after that.
Yeah, no, I think that was part of where I saw like the idea of like people pleasing, like even though you don't want to be there,
Yeah.
Ooh,
but you'll stay as long
that's
as
so
they want you
good.
to.
That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really liked those lines.
Okay.
Where is it?
Yeah.
I meant to tell them I won't return, but they know, as I do, that is untrue. I'll stay for the after party and long after that. Yeah. So like even like though the speaker doesn't want to be there and they want to leave, like they're gonna stay just to continue to satisfy those around them.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good. That was the penultimate piece of the collection.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you guys think about the last one? It's I feel like it's a stark shift in tone a little bit, maybe. A little bit more hopeful, at least at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple pieces in this third section that have a little bit more like a positive outlook. Like there is healing happening here.
Yeah.
Versus like the first couple of the first two sections, it felt like a cycle was continuing to repeat itself. And here, even in the third section, while the cycle is still repeating itself, the speaker is more aware of everything and trying to pull themselves out of it.
It's also a different setting, right? Like
That's what's different about it. Yeah.
also, the water and it kind of reminded me. I mean, maybe it's a bad connection, but the Great Gatsby, right, ends with that like we kept ceaselessly.
Oh yeah, driven. Yeah, the image of the light. Huh?
Yeah. Into the waves and
just the image of the sailboat here disappearing past the edge. But like the idea of following it, right? Like the pursuit of like what's past the horizon.
yeah.
And thinking forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great point on that.
And in the meta-ness of like the most beautiful sentence you've ever read.
It's a very satisfying end to the book for me. I feel like I can do a release of breath.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's the end. And close it and feel not anxious.
Yeah, and kind of going back again to like, heaven and purgatory. And I mean, yeah, there's a sense of salvation, grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for letting us, sharing this collection with us, Eduardo. And
Yeah.
I hope to have you on the podcast pretty soon as an interview. And maybe in between that time, listeners, if you guys have any specific questions you would like us to ask them, you can leave a comment on I think Spotify allows you to comment, or even on our social media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yay. Until next time, everybody.
Nice.
That's it. Quick
And
quick
that's it.
outro.
And it's
Please.
over.
Ceaselessly into the past. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Old sport.
Right.
Here we go. Okay. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Literally Literary, recorded at Power at the Pass and brought to you by Border Census. This episode, we continued our discussion on Cowboy Park by Eduardo Martinez-Leyva. If you haven't read it, we hope we inspire you to pick up a copy. Join us on our next episode and follow us on Instagram at literallyliterary.ep.